So in macroeconomics, a lot of people learn how to calculate gross domestic product. But before we learn how to calculate gross domestic product, I want you guys to think about what would be a useful metric to be able to determine whether the economy is doing well, poorly, or badly over a period of time, and what that metric would look like. So if we think about a business instead of thinking about the economy as a whole, how would you determine whether your business is doing good or bad from one year to the next? Well, you could start thinking about, how much product did we sell? Okay. So you could say, last year we sold 1,000 units and now this year we sold 1,500 units. So that would make it seem good. But if we're thinking about like 1,000 dozens of eggs that you sold one year and then 1,500 six-pack of eggs the following year, you're actually selling less eggs. So you have to find a way to kind of compare them. Okay. And then you could think about selling more or less goods, but the price of that good also fluctuates. Or you went from producing things that are cheaper to more expensive, or the opposite. So what we're really interested in when we're thinking about a business, how well we're doing, is we're looking at what value that we produce. And that value component of production is based on the price of the goods and the quantities of those goods. So if we kind of add up all of that value, we're saying we sold 1,000 units of these goods at $10 a pop. So that's 10,000 of revenue. We sold this amount, this amount, this amount of these other goods. And that gives me an idea of the total value being produced. And when I compare that total value being produced from one year to the next, I could see that regardless of how I reallocated my business, I'm either producing a greater value than before or not. We'll see kind of one of the things that you have to watch out for in the future with respect to inflation. But let's just for now assume that there is no inflation and that greater increase in the value of goods sold means that the business is growing, that we're able to produce more value from one year to the next. Well, that's pretty much the same thing that GDP does, is it tries to evaluate the value of all goods and services produced, all final goods and services produced within a country in a given time period. So it could be a quarter, it could be a whole year. So we're trying to compare, let's say, from one specific year to another one, how well the economy is doing. Are we able to produce more value than before? And by looking at that, if we're able to produce more value, more goods than before, it means that for no inflation, we'll keep things simple for now, and for no population change, if we have more goods being produced, more value, it means that we can consume more if we have a good distribution of these goods. So if we think about it as being like a pie, like a pizza pie or whatever, the greater the pie you can produce, it's easier for each one to get a slice that will be bigger than the previous year. So that's kind of the direction that we're going with. But you can see in this story that there's things to watch out for. For one, when we'll look at this metric, seeing GDP, we're going to see the size of the pie. But it doesn't really take into account the idea of if this pie is split equitably between the different market players. Is it just a few people that are getting a big part of this pie, or is it well spread out? So that's going to be one of the issues there. But generally speaking, when we look at GDP as a whole, it's a really good metric to seeing how the economy is doing. And if we look at trends in GDP over time, we could see if we're able to produce more goods, that means that we're able to afford more consumption. We're able to enjoy life more from one year to the next. If production levels are falling, if GDP is falling, that means that if you've been used to having a certain lifestyle, a certain amount of consumer goods, a certain amount of cars, whatever, if that trend follows, every person in the country will be able to afford less and less if everything's split evenly. So the more we can produce, the more we can kind of split things around and have more for everyone. So that's the general trend that we want to have. But obviously there's things to watch out for. But this is why GDP as a whole is important. If you found this video interesting, please consider subscribing or joining my class where I guide you to apply and expand on the information found in these videos to real-life examples. Have a good day.